Welcome back to Cupcake's Lullaby. We are now going to read chapter 8, The Honeymoon. It is the last chapter of the book, and it is the shortest chapter. Once the panic was well underway, Yellen realized he had next to no chance of bringing things immediately under control. Besides, the giant was terribly close now, and the roar, "No survivors," made it very hard to do any solid thinking. But fortunately, he had the sense to grab the one and only key to the castle and hide it on his person. Fortunately, too, Wesley had the sense to look for such behavior. "Give me the key," Wesley said to Yellen once Inigo had his sword securely pressuring Yellen's Adam's apple. "I have no key," Yellen replied. "I swear on the grave of my parents, may my mother's soul forever sizzle in torment if I am lying." "Tear his arms off," Wesley said to Physic, who was sizzling a bit himself now, because there was no limit just to how long a Holocaust cloak was really good for, and he wanted to strip a bit. But before he did that, he reached for Yellen's arms. You mean, this key you mean," Yellen said, and dropped it. And after Inigo had taken his sword, and they let him run away. "Open the gate," Wesley said to Physic. "I'm so hot," Physic said. "Can I please take this thing off first?" And after Wesley's nod, he pulled the flaming cloak away and left it on the ground. Then unlocked the gate and pulled the door open long enough for them to slip through. "Lock it and keep the key, Physic," Wesley said. "It must be 5:30 by now. Half of an hour left to stop the way." "What will we do after we win?" Physic said, working with the key, forcing the great lock to close. "Where should we meet? I'm the kind of fellow who needs instructions." Before Wesley could answer, Inigo cried out and readied his sword. Count Rugen and 4 palace guards were rounding a corridor running towards them. The time was 5:34. The wedding itself did not end until 5:31, and Humperdinck had to use all of his persuasive abilities to get even that much accomplished. As the screaming from outside the gate burst bounds of property. The prince interrupted the archdeacon with the gentlest manner and said, "Holiness, my love is simply overpowering my ability to wait. Please skip down to the end of the service." The time was then 5:27. "Humperdinck and Buttercup," the archdeacon said, "I am very old and my thoughts on marriage are few, but I feel I must give you on this most happy of days." The archdeacon could hear absolutely nothing and had been so afflicted since he was 85 or so. The only actual change that had come over him was in the past years was that for some reason his impediment had gotten worse. "Marriage," he said. "Very old." Unless paid strict attention to his title and past accomplishments, it was very hard to take him seriously. "Marriage," the archdeacon began. "Again, Holiness, I interrupt in the name of love. Please hurry along the best as you can to the end." "Marriage is dweam within a dweam." Buttercup is paying little attention to the goings on. Wesley must be racing down the quarters now. He always ran so beautifully. Even back on the farm, long before she knew her heart, it was good to watch him run. Count Rugen was the other person in the room, and the commotion at the gate had him on edge. Outside the door he had his 4 best swordsmen, so no one could enter the tiny chapel, but still there was a lot of people screaming where the brute squad should have been. 4 guards were the only ones left inside the castle, for the prince needed no spectators to the events that were soon to happen. If only the idiot cleric would speed things along. It was already 5:29. "The dweam of Wove weapon within the Gueda dweam of every west and west. Eternity is our wind, remember that, and love wim wow you forever." It was 5:30, and the prince stood up and approached the archdeacon firmly. "Man and wife," he shouted. "Man and wife, say that." "I'm not there yet," the archdeacon answered. "You just arrived," the prince replied. "Now." Buttercup could picture Wesley rounding the final corner. There were 4 guards outside waiting. At 10 seconds per guard, she began figuring, but then stopped because numbers had always been her enemy. She looked down at her hands. "Oh, I hope he still thinks it pretty. She thought those nightmares took a lot out of me." "Man and wife," You're a man in white, the archdeacon said. Thank you, Holiness, the prince said, whirling toward Rujan. Stop that commotion, he commanded, and before his words were finished, the count was running to the chapel door. It was 5:31. It took full 3 minutes of the count and the guards to reach the gate, and when they did, the count could not believe it. He had seen Wesley killed, and now there was Wesley, and the giant and strangely scarred, swarthy fellow. Something about his twin scars banked deep into his memory, but now was not the time for reminiscing. Kill them, he said to the fencers, but leave the middle-sized one until I tell you. And the 4 guards drew the swords. But too late. Too late, too slow, because Physic moved out in front of Wesley. Inigo attacked, and the great blade blinding, and the 4th guard was dead before the first one had a sufficient time to hit the floor. Inigo stood still a moment, panting, then he made himself turn in the direction of Count Rujan, and executed a quick and well-formed bow. Hello, he said. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. And in reply, the Count did the only remarkably unexpected thing. He turned and ran. It was now 5:37. King Lothran and Queen Bella arrived at the wedding chapel in time to see Count Rujan leading the 4 guards and charge down the corridor. Are we too early? Queen Bella said as they entered the wedding chapel and found Buttercup and Humperdinck and the archdeacon. There is much going on, the prince said. All in due time. We'll consider matchlessly clear. But I fear there is a strong possibility at this very moment Gildians are attacking. I need time alone in the garden to formulate my battle plans. So could I prevail on you to personally escort Buttercup to my bedchamber? His request was naturally granted. The prince hurried off then, and after one stop to unlock a closet, to remove several pairs of boots that would belong to the Gildian soldiers, he hurried outside. Buttercup, for her part, walked very slowly and peacefully between the old king and queen. There was no need to ever worry, not with Wesley there to stop her. The wedding and take her away forever. The truth in her situation did not take genuine effect until she was halfway to Humperdinck's room. There was no Wesley, no sweet Wesley. He had not seen fit to come for her. She gave a terrible sigh, not much of sadness as of farewell. Once she got to Humperdinck's room, it would all be done. He had a splendid collection of swords and cutlery. She had never seriously contemplated suicide before. Oh, of course she had thought about it, every girl does from time to time, but never seriously. To quiet her supplies, she found it was going to be the easiest thing in the world. She reached for the prince's chamber and said goodnight to the royal family and went directly to the wall display of weaponry. The time was 5:46. Inigo, at 5:37, who was startled at the Count's cowardice for a moment, he simply stood there. Then he gave chase, and of course he was faster, but the Count made it through a doorway, slammed it and locked it, and Inigo was helpless to budge the thing. Physic, he called out desperately. Physic, break it down. But Physic was with Wesley. That was his job, to stay and protect Wesley. And though they were still within view of Inigo, Physic could do nothing. Wesley had already started to walk slowly, weakly, but he was under his own power, walking. Charge it, Physic replied. Slam your shoulder hard, it will give for you. Inigo charged the door. He slammed and he slammed his shoulder, but he was thin, and the door otherwise. He's getting away from me, Inigo said. But Wesley is helpless, Physic reminded him. Physic, I need you, Inigo screamed. I'll only be a minute, Physic said, but because there was some things you did no matter what, and when a friend needed help, you helped him. Wesley nodded, kept on walking, still slowly, still weak, but still able to move. Hurry, Inigo urged. Physic hurried. He lumbered toward the locked door, threw his bulk against it hard. The door held. Please, Inigo urged. I'll get it, Physic promised, and he took a few steps back this time, and drove his shoulder against the wood door, and the door gave some. A little, but not enough. Physic backed away from it. With a roar, he charged across the corridor, and when he was close, he left the castle floor with both feet, and the door splintered. Thank you, Inigo said, already halfway through the broken door. What do I do now? Physic called. Back to Wesley, Inigo answered in a full flight now, beginning chase through the series of rooms. Stupid, Physic punished himself with, and he turned to rejoin Wesley, only Wesley was no longer there. Physic could feel panic starting inside him. There were a half-dozen possible quarters. Which? Physic said, trying to figure it out, trying for once in his life to do something right. You'll pick the wrong one knowing you, he said aloud, and then he took a corridor and started hurrying along it as fast as he could. He did pick the wrong one. Wesley was alone now. Inigo was gaining. He could see instant to instant flashes of the fleeing noble in the next room. And when he reached that place, the Count would have made it into the royal room behind. But each time Inigo was gaining. By 5:40, he felt confident he would, after a chase of 25 years, be alone in the room with his revenge. By 5:48, Buttercup felt quite sure she would be dead. It was still a minute before she stood staring at the prince's knives. The most lethal looked to be the one most used, the Florinese dagger. Pointed at one end, it entered easily, growing into the Florin dagger. Growing into a triangular shape by the hilt. For quicker bleeding, it was said. They were made of varying sizes. The prince looked to be one of the largest. Being the wrist thick, it was joined at the handle. She pulled it from the wall and put it to her heart. There are always too few perfect breasts in the world. Leave yours alone, she heard. And there was Wesley, on the bed. It was 5:48, and she knew she would never die. Wesley, for his part, assumed that he had until 6:15 for his hour to be up. That was, of course, when an hour was up. Only he didn't have an hour, only 40 minutes, till 5:55 actually. 7 minutes more, but as he has said, he had no way of knowing that. And Inigo had no way of knowing that Count Ruchin had a Florinese dagger, or that he was the expert with the thing. It took Inigo until 5:41 before he actually cornered the Count in the billiard room. Hello, he was about to say. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father, prepared to die. What he actually got out was a lot less, hello, my name is Ed. And then the dagger rearranged his insides. The force of the throw sent him staggering backward into the wall. The rush of blood weakened him so quickly he could not keep his feet. Domingo, Domingo, he whispered, and then he was, at 42 minutes after 5, lost on his knees. Buttercup was baffled by Wesley's behavior. She rushed to him, expecting to meet him halfway in wild embrace. Instead, he only smiled at her and remained where he was, lying on the prince's pillows, a sword beside his body. Buttercup continued the journey alone and fell onto her very one and only darling Wesley. Gently, he said. At the time, it was like all you could say. Gently, gently. Wesley repeated, not so gently this time. She got off him. Are you angry at me for getting married, she wondered. You are not married, he said softly. Strange his voice, not in church or any other. But this old man did pronounce, widows happen every day, don't they, your highness? And now his voice was stronger as he addressed the prince, who entered the muddy boots in hand. Prince Humperdinck drove for his weapons, and a sword flashed in his thick hands. To the death, he said, advancing. Wesley gave a soft shake of his head. No, he corrected, to the pain. It was an odd phrase. For a moment, he brought the prince up short. Besides, why was this fellow just lying there? Where's the trap? I don't think I quite understand that. Wesley lying without moving, but smiling more deeply now. I'll be only too delighted to explain. It was 5:50 now. 25 minutes left of safety left. There were 5. He did not know that. How could he know that? Slowly, he carefully began to talk. Inigo was talking too. It was 5:42 when he whispered, I'm sorry, father. Count Ruchin heard the words, but nothing really connected until he saw the sword still held in Inigo's hand. You're that little Spanish brat I taught a lesson to, he said, coming closer, now examining the scars. It's simply incredible. Have you been chasing me all these years, only to fail now? I think it's the worst thing I've ever heard. How marvelous. Inigo could say nothing. Blood facetted from his stomach. Count Ruchin drew his sword. Sorry, father. I'm sorry. I don't want your sorry. My name is Domingo Montoya, and I died for that sword, and you can keep your sorry. If that's what you're going to fail, why don't you die years ago and let me rest in peace? And then McPherson was after him too. Spaniards, I should never have tried to teach a Spaniard. They're dumb, they forget. What do you do with a wound? How many times did I teach you? What do you do with a wound? Cover it, Inigo said, and he pulled the knife from his body and stuffed his left fist into the bleeding. Inigo's eyes began to focus again. Not well, not perfectly, but enough to see the Count's blade as it approached his heart. And Inigo couldn't do much with the attack, parrying it vaguely, pushing the point into his left shoulder, where it did no innumerable harm. Count Rugen was a bit surprised that his point had been deflected, but there was nothing wrong with piercing a helpless man's shoulder. There was no hurry when you had him. McPherson was screaming again, "Spaniards, give me a Pollock anytime. At least the Pollocks remember to use the wall when they have only one." Only Spaniards would forget to use a wall. Slowly, inch by inch, Inigo forced his body up the wall, using his legs just for pushing, letting the wall do all the supporting that was necessary. Count Rugen struck again, but for any number of reasons, most probably because he hadn't expected his own man's movement. He missed the heart, and had to be content with driving his blade through the Spaniard's left arm. Inigo didn't mind. He didn't even feel it. His right arm was where his interest lay, and he squeezed the handle. There was strength in his hand, enough to flick out at the enemy. Count Rugen hadn't expected that either, so he gave a little involuntary cry and took a step back to reassess the situation. Power was flowing up Inigo's heart into his right shoulder, down his shoulder into his fingers, and then a great six-fingered sword. He pushed off the wall again. With a whisper, he whispered, "Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die." And they crossed swords. The Count went for the quick kill, but Inverse Bonetti, no chance. "Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die." Again they crossed swords. The Count moved into Mazzaro defense because the blood was still streaming. Inigo shoved his fist deeper into himself. "Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die." The Count retreated around the billiard table. Inigo slipped in his own blood. The Count continued to retreat, waiting and waiting. "Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die." He dug in with his fist and didn't want to think he was touching and pushing and holding into place, but for the first time he felt able to try to move. So the six-fingered sword flashed forward. And then there was a cut down the Count Rugen's cheek. Another flash. Another cut. Parallel bleeding. "Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die." Stop saying that. The Count was beginning to experience a decline of nerve. Inigo drove for the Count's left shoulder as the Count had wounded his. Then he went for the Count's left arm, at the same spot the Count had penetrated his. "Hello," stronger now. "Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die." "No, offer me mercy." Everything the Count said. "Power too. Promise me that." "All I have and more, please." "Offer me anything I ask for?" Yes, say it." "I want Domingo Montoya, you son of a bitch." And the six-fingered sword flashed again. The Count screamed. "That was just to the left of your heart," Inigo struck again. Another scream. "That was below your heart. Can you guess what I'm doing?" "Cutting my heart out?" "You took mine when I was 10. I want yours now. We are lovers of justice, you and I. And what could be more just than that?" The Count screamed one final time and then fell dead of fear. There is Inigo Montoya. Inigo looked down at him. The Count's frozen face was petrified and ashen, and the blood still poured down the parallel cuts. His eyes bulged wide, full of horror and pain. It was glorious, as if you liked that kind of thing. Inigo loved it. It was 5:50 when he staggered from the room, heading he knew not where or for how long, but hoping that whoever had been guiding him lately would not desert him now. "I'm going to tell you something once, and then whether you die or not is strictly up to you," Wesley said, lying pleasantly on the bed across the room. The prince held his sword high. "What I'm going to tell you is this. Drop your sword, and if you do, then I will leave you with this baggage here." He glanced at Buttercup. "And you will be tied up, but not fatally, and when you soon be free to go about your business. If you choose to fight, well then, we will both not leave alive." "I expect to breathe a while," the prince said. "I think you are bluffing. You have been prisoner for months. I myself killed you less than a day ago, so I doubt that you have much left in your arm." "Possibly true," Wesley agreed, "and when the moment comes, remember that I might only indeed be bluffing. I could, in fact, be lying here because I lack the strength to stand, all that way carefully. You are only alive now because you said to the pain, I want that phrase explained. My pleasure. It was now 5:52. 3 minutes left. He thought he had 18. He took a long pause, then started speaking. Surely you must have guessed I am no ordinary sailor. I am in fact Roberts himself. I am in fact not least surprised or awed. To the pain means this. If we duel and you win, death for me. If we duel and I win, life for you, but life on my terms. Meaning? It could still be a trap. His body was at the ready. There are those who credit you with skill as a hunter, though I find that doubtful. The prince smiled. This fellow was baiting him. Why? And if you hunt well, then surely when you tracked your lady, you must have begun at the cliffs of insanity. A duel was fought there, and you noted the movements and the strides. You would know that these were masters battling. They were, remember this. I won that fight. I am a pirate. We have our special tricks with swords. It was 5:53. I am not unfamiliar with your steel. The first thing you will lose will be your feet, Wesley said. The left, then the right, below the ankle. You will have stumps, unable to use within 6 months. Then your hands at the wrist. They will heal somewhat quicker. 5 months is a fair average. And now Wesley was beginning to be aware of the strange changes in his body, and he began talking faster and louder. Next, your nose, the smell of dawn for you, followed by your tongue, deeply cut away, not even a stump left, and then your left eye, and then my right eye, and then my ears, and we shall get on with it, the prince said. It was 5:54. Wrong. Wesley's voice ran across the room. Your ears you keep, that so that every shriek of every child in seeing your hideousness will be yours to cherish. Every babe that weeps in fear at your approach, every woman that cries, Dear God, what is that thing? Will reverberate forever in your perfect ears. That is what to the pain means. It means I let you live in anguish, in humiliation, and freakish misery until you can stand it no more. So there you have it, pig. There you know your miserable, vomitous mass. And I say this now, live or die, it's up to you. Drop your sword. The sword clashed to the floor. It was 5:55. Wesley's eyes rolled up into his head and his body clumped and a half pitched from the bed. And the prince saw that and went to the floor, grabbing for his sword. Starting to bring it high when Wesley cried out, Now you will suffer to the pain. His eyes were open again, open and blazing. I'm sorry, I meant nothing. I didn't look. And the prince dropped his sword the second time. Tie him, Wesley said to Buttercup. Be quick about it. Use the curtain sashes. They look enough to hold him. You do so much better, Buttercup replied. I'll get the sashes, but I really think you should be the actual tying. Woman, Wesley roared, you're the property of the dread pirate Roberts, and you do what you're told. Obey. Buttercup gathered the sashes and did what she could with tying up her husband. Humperdinck lay flat while she did it. He seemed strangely happy. I wasn't afraid of you, he said to Wesley. I dropped my sword because it was so much more pleasure for me to hunt you down. And there's Wesley on the bed with the Count bowing. You think so, do you? I doubt you'll find us. I'll conquer Gilder, then I'll come for you. The corner you least expect. And when you round it, you will find me waiting. I am the king of the sea. I wait with pleasure, he called to Buttercup. Is he tied? Sort of. There was a moment at the doorway, and then Inigo was there. Buttercup cried out at the blood. Inigo ignored her, looked around. Where's Physic? Isn't he with you? Wesley said. Inigo leaned forward for a moment against the nearest wall, gathering his strength, and then he said, Help him up to Buttercup. Wesley, Buttercup replied. Why doesn't he need me to help him? Because he has no strength. Now do what you're told, Inigo said. And suddenly on the floor, the prince began struggling mightily. With the sashes he was tied, and tied very well, but power and anger were both on his side. You are bluffing. I was right the first time, Humperdinck said. And Inigo said, That was not a clever thing of my lips to let slip. I'm sorry, and Wesley said, Did you at least win your battle? And Inigo said, I did. And Wesley said, Let us try to find some place to defend ourselves. At least perhaps we can go together. And Buttercup said, I'll help you up, poor darling. And Physic said, "Oh, Inigo, I need you. Please, Inigo, I'm lost and miserable and frightened, and I just need to see a friendly face." They moved slowly to the window. Wandering, lost and forlorn, the prince's garden was Physic, leading 4 giant whites. "Here," Inigo whispered. "Their friendly faces," Physic said, kind of bouncing up, looking down on his heels, on which always did the things looking up. "Oh, Inigo, I just ruined everything, and I got so lost, and when I stumbled into the stables, I found these pretty horses. I thought 4 was how many of them there were, and 4 is how many of us there were too. If we found the lady, hello, lady, and I thought, why not take them along with me in case we all run into each other?" He stopped a moment, considering and guessing. "We did." Inigo was terribly excited. "Physic, you thought for yourself," he said. Physics considered the moment too. "Does this mean you're not mad at me for getting lost?" "If we only had a ladder," Buttercup began. "Oh, you don't need a ladder to get down here," Physics said. "It's only 20 feet. I'll catch you. Only do it one at a time, please. There's not enough light, so if you all come at once, I might miss." So while Humperdinck struggled, they jumped at one time, and Physic caught them gently and put them on the whites. And he still had the keys so he could get out of the front gate, except for the fact that Yellen had regrouped the brute squad. They would have gotten out without any trouble at all. As it was, when Physic unlocked the gate, they saw nothing but armed brutes in formation, Yellen at their lead, and no one smiling. Wesley shook his head. "I am dry of notions." "Child's play of all people," Buttercup said. She led the group toward Yellen. "The Count is dead. The prince is in grave danger. Hurry now, or you might yet save him. All of you go." Not a brute moved. "They obey me," Yellen said, "and I am in charge of enforcement. And I," Buttercup said, she repeated, standing up in the saddle, a creature of infinite beauty and eyes that were starting to grow frightening. "I," she said for the 3rd time, "am the queen." And there was no doubting her sincerity or power or capability for vengeance. She stared impetuously across the brute squad. "Save Humperdinck," one brute said, and with that they all dashed into the castle. "Save Humperdinck," Yellen said, and the last one left, but clearly his heart wasn't in it. Actually, that was something of a fib. Buttercup said that they began to ride for freedom, seeing as Lothran hasn't officially resigned. "But I thought 'I am queen' sounded better than 'I am the princess.'" "All I can say is I'm impressed," Wesley told her. Buttercup shrugged. "It's going to be royalty school 3 years now." Something had to rub off. She looked at Wesley. "You all right?" "I was worried about you back there on the bed there. Your eyes rolled up in your head and everything. I suppose I am dying again, so I asked the Lord of permanent affection, the strength to live the day." Clearly, answer came in the affirmative. "I did not know there was such a fellow," Buttercup said. "Neither did I, in truth, but he didn't exist. I don't want to either." There's Buttercup telling the brute squad to get moving. The 4 great horses seemed almost to fly towards Florin Channel. "It appears to me that we are doomed then," Buttercup said. Wesley looked at her. "Doomed, madam?" "To be together until one of us dies." "I've done that already, and I haven't the slightest intention of ever doing it again," Wesley said. Buttercup looked at him. "Don't we sort of have some time? Not if we promise to outlive each other, and that I make a promise now." Buttercup looked at him. "Oh, my Wesley, so do I." "And they lived ever happily ever after," my father said. "Wow," I said. He looked at me. "You're not pleased?" "No, it's just that it came so quick, the ending. It surprised me. I thought there'd be a little more, is all. I mean, the pirate ship was waiting, or was it just a rumor like it said?" "Complained to Mr. Morgenstern, and they lived happily ever after is how it ends." The truth was, my father was fibbing. I spent my whole life thinking it ended that way, up until I did this abridgment. Then I glanced at the last page. This is how Morgenstern ends it. Buttercup looked at him. "Oh, my Wesley, so do I." From behind them, suddenly, closer than they had imagined, they could hear the roar of Humperdinck. "Stop them! Cut them off!" They were admittedly startled, but there was no reason for worry. They were on the fastest horses in the kingdom, and the lead was already theirs. And there's them on their horses. However, this was before Inigo's wounds reopened and Wesley relapsed again, and Physic took the wrong turn, and Buttercup's horse threw a shoe, and the night behind them was filled with crescendoing sound of pursuit. That's Morgenstern's ending. The Lady or the Tiger. Type effect this before the Lady of the Tiger, remember. Now he was a satirist, so he left it that way. My father was, I guess, I realized, too late a romantic, so he ended it another way. Well, I'm an Abridger, so I'm entitled to a few ideas of my own. Did they make it? Was there a pirate ship? You could answer it for yourself. But for me, I see yes it was. And yes, they got away. And yes, there's strength back and lots of adventures and more of the shares of laughs. But that doesn't mean I think they had a happy ending either. Because in my opinion anyway, they squabbled a lot. Buttercup lost her looks eventually, and one day Physic lost a fight, and some hotshot kid whipped Inigo with a sword, and Wesley was never able to really sleep sound because of the Humperdinck maybe being on his trail. I'm not trying to make this a downer, understand? I mean, I really do think that love is the best thing in the world, except for cough drops. But I also have to say, for the uppity umph time, that life isn't fair. It just isn't. It's just fairer than death, and that's all.